In the quiet hours of dawn, a woman sits cross-legged in her living room, eyes closed, breath slow. Suddenly, she hears a voice note, her own whispering truths she's never known. A flash of light dances behind her eyelids. She feels a presence. Is she losing her mind or finding it? Hallucinations, long stigmatized as symptoms of psychosis, are increasingly being re-examined through the lens of spiritual transformation. From ancient mystics to modern seekers, altered states of consciousness have often been accompanied by vivid auditory and visual phenomena. But what causes these experiences? And why do they so often coincide with moments of profound personal awakening? Recent research suggests that the answer may lie in the brain's neurochemical symphony, particularly the role of dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with reward, motivation, and perception. As spiritual practices like meditation, fasting, and breathwork alter brain chemistry, they may trigger hallucinatory experiences that feel both otherworldly and deeply personal. The neuroscience of seeing the unseen hallucinations are defined as perceptions in the absence of external stimuli. They can be auditory, hearing voices or sounds, visual, seeing lights, figures or patterns, tactile, olfactory, or even gustatory, while commonly associated with psychiatric conditions like schizophrenia. Hallucinations also occur in healthy individuals under specific conditions: sleep deprivation, sensory isolation, intense stress, or spiritual practice. At the heart of many hallucinations is dopamine. This neurotransmitter plays a crucial role in modulating attention, expectation, and salience, the brain's way of tagging what's important. When dopamine levels spike, the brain may begin to assign significance to neutral stimuli, leading to the perception of patterns, voices, or visions that aren't objectively present. Dopamine and the salience network. The salience network, which includes the anterior cingulate cortex and the insula, helps the brain decide what to focus on. When dopamine floods this system, it can cause hyperactivation, leading to the misinterpretation of internal thoughts as external voices, or the projection of imagined images onto the visual field. This mechanism is not inherently pathological. In fact, it may be adaptive in certain contexts. For example, during a spiritual awakening, the brain may be primed to detect meaning in previously mundane experiences. The result: a cascade of hallucinations that feel revelatory rather than frightening. Spiritual practices that alter brain chemistry. Many spiritual traditions include techniques that deliberately alter consciousness. These practices often affect dopamine levels, either directly or indirectly. Meditation. Long-term meditators show increased dopamine release in the striatum, a region involved in reward and movement. This may contribute to the vivid imagery and auditory phenomena reported during deep states of absorption. Fasting. Caloric restriction can increase dopamine receptor sensitivity, heightening perception and emotional intensity. Breathwork techniques like holotropic breathing can induce altered states by changing oxygen and carbon dioxide levels, which in turn affect neurotransmitter balance. Sleep deprivation, used in some mystical traditions. Sleep deprivation can lead to spontaneous hallucinations due to dysregulated dopamine and serotonin. These practices don't just tweak brain chemistry, they also shift cognitive frameworks, as the default mode network DMN, responsible for self-referential thought quietance. Individuals may feel a dissolution of ego boundaries, making hallucinations feel like communications from a higher source. Hallucinations as predictive processing errors. Another compelling theory comes from predictive processing, which posits that the brain is a prediction machine. It constantly generates models of reality and updates them based on sensory input. When dopamine levels are high, the brain may overweight its predictions and underweight actual sensory data. This can lead to hallucinations perceptions driven more by expectation than reality. During a spiritual awakening, the brain may be flooded with new beliefs, symbols, and emotional salience. These internal models can override external input, creating a hallucinatory experience that feels deeply meaningful. In this view, hallucinations are not glitches. They read the brain's attempt to reconcile new paradigms with old sensory frameworks. Historical and cultural perspectives. Hallucinations have long been part of spiritual narratives. Joan of Arc claimed to hear voices from saints guiding her mission. Ramana Maharshi experienced visions during his spontaneous awakening at age 16. Indigenous shamans across cultures report visual and auditory phenomena during trance states induced by drumming, dancing, or plant medicine. These experiences were not pathologized, they were revered. In many cultures, hallucinations were seen as signs of divine contact, spiritual initiation, or prophetic insight. Modern neuroscience doesn't necessarily contradict these interpretations. Instead, it offers a framework for understanding how spiritual practices can reliably induce altered states, and why those states often include hallucinations. The fine line between madness and mysticism. The overlap between psychosis and spiritual awakening is both fascinating and fraught. Psychiatrist Stanislav Grof coined the term spiritual emergency to describe crises where individuals experience intense hallucinations, ego dissolution, and existential insight. These episodes can resemble psychosis, but often resolve without medication, especially when supported by community and context. The key difference may lie in integration. In psychosis, hallucinations are often chaotic, frightening, and disconnected from meaning. In spiritual awakening, they are typically imbued with purpose, coherence, and transformation. Dopamine may be the same, but the narrative scaffolding is different. Hallucinations in the age of TikTok and neurohacking. As interest in spirituality surges online, more people are experimenting with techniques that induce altered states. TikTok and YouTube are filled with testimonials of third eye openings, downloads from the universe, and light code activations. While some dismiss these as delusions, others see them as democratized mysticism. Neurohacking communities are also exploring ways to modulate dopamine through supplements, nootropics, and brainwave entrainment. The goal, to induce visionary states without psychedelics. While promising, these methods raise ethical questions about safety, consent, and the commodification of transcendence. Navigating the visionary landscape. So, what should seekers know before diving into practices that may induce hallucinations? Context matters. Hallucinations are not inherently dangerous, but they can be destabilizing. A supportive environment and clear intention are crucial. Integration is key. Journaling, therapy, and community dialogue can help make sense of visionary experiences. Know your neurochemistry. Understanding the role of dopamine can demystify the process and reduce fear. Respect the mystery. Not all hallucinations can or should be explained away. Sometimes the unknown is part of the journey. Final reflections. The brain as a portal. Hallucinations during spiritual awakening are not mere glitches in the system. They may be the brain's way of opening a portal, one that bridges the empirical and the ineffable, the neurological and the numinous. As science continues to explore the mechanisms behind these phenomena, it may also uncover deeper truths about consciousness itself.